However, we must take action to suppress the disease. First, we are once again asking office workers who can work from home to do so. In key public services and in all professions where home working is not possible, such as construction or retail, people should continue to attend their workplaces. And like government, this House will be free to take forward its business in a COVID-secure way, which you, Mr. Speaker, have pioneered. Second, from Thursday, all pubs, bars and restaurants must operate a table service only, Mr. Speaker, except for takeaways. Together with all hospitality venues, they must close at 10 p.m. And to help the police enforce this rule, I'm afraid that means, alas, closing and not just calling for last orders, because simplicity is paramount. The same will apply to takeaways, though deliveries can continue thereafter. And I'm sorry that this will affect many businesses just getting back on their feet, but we must act to stop the virus from being transmitted in bars and restaurants. Third, we will extend the requirement to wear face coverings to include staff in retail, all users of taxis and private hire vehicles, and staff and customers in indoor hospitality, except when seated at a table to eat or drink. Fourth, in retail, leisure and tourism and other sectors, our COVID-secure guidelines will become legal obligations. Businesses will be fined and could be closed if they breach the rules. Fifth, now is the time to tighten up the rule of six. I'm afraid that from Monday, a maximum of 15 people will be able to attend wedding ceremonies and receptions, though up to 30 can still attend a funeral as now. We will also have to extend the rule of six to all adult indoor team sports. Finally, we have to acknowledge that the spread of the virus is now affecting our ability to reopen business conferences, exhibitions, and large sporting events. So we will not be able to do this from the 1st of October, and I recognise the implications for our sports clubs, which are the life and soul of our communities, and my right honourable friends, the Chancellor and Culture Secretary, are working urgently on what we can do now to support them.
I remember one of the very eminent chiefs of defence staff referring to the army as a blunt instrument. They're there to kill. They're not there to actually have the delicate kind of touch that police have to have, and they're there as an aid to civil power. We don't want martial law in this country, for goodness sake. I think this is a dangerous kind of thing, an escalation. They can be there to back up police officers, and they do that, of course, in times of national emergencies, but we want to be absolutely sure we know their role.
Why dangerous, John?
Because at the end of the day, when you're calling in the military on the streets, then the police have lost the streets, and it's actually tantamount to martial law. We've never had it in this country for hundreds of years, and we don't want it now. We know the police are stretched. We know that the assaults on police are now a national scandal. But I've spoken to my colleagues, and they certainly don't want soldiers on the streets enforcing the law.
How surprised were you when you heard the Prime Minister yesterday?
Well, I listened to it, and I thought, well, I'm sure it was a kind of not a very specific description of what was going on. So I did wonder about it, and I had one or two phone calls with my colleagues and friends who are still in the job. They're absolutely adamant they don't want our soldiers on the streets, because it's bad enough to enforce the COVID laws as it is. It needs a very gentle and sensitive touch, not people who are not trained to do that.
Well, you'll know better than most the 3 E's of policing: explain, encourage and engage. Have the police therefore failed in those 3 E's, John?
No, I don't think they have, Nick. I think, we know that the police were absolutely decimated in terms of the resources that they had over the period of time when Theresa May was Home Secretary. And there's been a change now. There's more support coming in. The police are really stretched before the COVID. Now the COVID has come in, then they're stretched even more. And I think this is a backup. This is a kind of expression that we want to support the police behind the scenes, but it really has to be spelt out specifically, and there are rules of engagement in relation to these kind of issues, that the police are there to enforce the law and nobody else.
And lastly, does this speak to, in some areas, some people losing respect for the police force?
Well, I think it's a very dangerous issue, and there is no doubt about it. Police are going to have to act with a great deal of discretion and sensitivity, and they're going to have to look at the priorities. We know that crime's really escalating,
yes,
both in urban areas and rural areas. The priority will not be the enforcement, in certain cases, of the COVID laws. If you've got a person who's being attacked in their home, or there's murder, or there's a knife crime, that will be the priority. So they're going to have to pull back in terms of enforcing the COVID laws. But the bottom line is there are one or two people, and I've seen it was done in London last week, who actually just seem to, revel in it. There's only one or two of them revel in the fact that they're not following the laws. That's got to be enforced. But the bottom line of it is the police have a very difficult job here, because the priorities will be on the streets, and all the issues that we know are there at the moment.
But you wouldn't want to stop demos, would you, like XR or BLM? Or would you want to put a curfew on those then, John? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think that needs to be thought about. And
oh, really?
There are well, I think it has to be thought about in terms of restrictions, in terms of where the law is. At the bottom line, we don't want people running around flouting the law. And this disease is a nasty, nasty business, and we need to make sure that that's not spread by any means. And mass protest, mass people in crowds is a way of spreading it. At the same time, we have to get the balance that people have to have the right to protest, so it's a difficult one.